The system was never designed for your freedom. You wake up, check your phone, scroll through notifications, rush to a job that structures your hours, meet expectations from family, friends, bosses, and bills that never quite let up. You chase promotions, better pay, more likes, more stuff, thinking each step will finally give you room to breathe. But the days keep filling up the same way. The weekends disappear into errands and recovery. Quiet moments bring the same nagging sense. This pace, these demands, this constant pull outward, it's not accidental. It's built to keep you occupied, productive, consuming. You feel the weight of it not as dramatic oppression, but as a steady, ordinary erosion of your time and attention. That quiet realization hits hardest when you're alone. Real freedom isn't out there in the next achievement or escape. It's something the external world was never set up to hand you. If this resonates with you, hit that like button and subscribe for more Stoic insights that cut through the noise of modern life. Turn on notifications so you don't miss the next one. Number 1. Recognizing the illusion of freedom. The modern world sells freedom as choice. Endless options for careers, lifestyles, entertainment, possessions. Yet every choice comes preloaded with obligations. You select a job, but it selects your schedule, your energy, your social circle. You buy a house, but it owns your mortgage payments for decades. Epictetus saw this clearly. External things promise control, but deliver dependence. The system thrives on your pursuit of these externals because they chain you to outcomes you cannot fully command. True freedom begins when you stop believing the illusion that more external success equals more liberty. It requires seeing that the structure around you, economic, social, digital, was shaped for stability and productivity, not for your unrestricted autonomy. Stoicism teaches the dichotomy of control as the antidote. What lies outside your power, the economy, other people's opinions, unexpected events, cannot grant or revoke your freedom. Only your judgments and voluntary actions remain yours. When you chase external markers, you hand over your peace to things indifferent by nature. Marcus Aurelius reminded himself daily that the universe operates indifferently to individual desires. The system mirrors that indifference. It provides rails for movement, but no true off-ramp to inner sovereignty. Accepting this fact without resentment frees mental energy once wasted on frustration. The cost of clinging to the illusion shows in daily exhaustion. You grind for raises that buy slightly larger cages, vacations that recharge you just enough to return. The quiet frustration builds because deep down you sense the mismatch. The system rewards compliance and output, not self-mastery. Stoics like Seneca observe that wealth and status often increase servitude rather than reduce it. Freedom arrives not by accumulating more, but by desiring less from externals. This shift feels subtle at first. Less scrolling, fewer impulse buys, but compounds in a profound relief. Practice begins small. Notice when a notification pulls your attention and ask if it serves your rational nature or merely the system's pull. Epictetus urged training the mind to distinguish what is up to us. Over time, this practice reveals the system's design. It wants your engagement, your data, your labor. By withdrawing assent from unnecessary pursuits, you reclaim territory the system never intended to leave open. Number 2. The chains of desire and opinion. Desire fuels the system's hold more than any law or boss. You want approval, security, comfort. Natural impulses the modern world amplifies into endless needs. Advertisements, social media, career ladders exploit these desires, turning them into engines of perpetual dissatisfaction. Seneca warned that craving externals enslaves us. The more we value them, the less control we retain. The system was never built to satisfy desire. It profits from its persistence. Every upgrade promised, new phone, better title, fitter body, delivers temporary relief followed by new benchmarks. This cycle keeps you running without arriving. Epictetus taught that freedom comes from removing desire, not fulfilling it. When you stop needing external validation, the system's leverage weakens. Opinions of others, once weapons, lose power because you no longer grant them authority over your worth. Modern life intensifies this through comparison. Feeds show curated success. You measure yourself against illusions and feel deficient. Stoicism counters with voluntary discomfort. Practice viewing desires objectively, as indifferent preferences rather than necessities. Marcus Aurelius practiced this by reflecting on impermanence. Nothing external lasts, so why let it dictate your state? The deeper chain forms when desire blends with fear of loss. Losing status, relationships, possessions threatens identity because identity has fused with externals. Stoics separate self from circumstance. Virtue alone defines you. By focusing on character, justice in dealings, courage in difficulty, you build freedom immune to the system's fluctuations. Releasing these chains requires consistent discipline. Start by auditing desires daily. Which serve reason? Which serve distraction? Over weeks, voluntary simplicity emerges. Not asceticism, but clarity. You engage the world on your terms, using what's useful without attachment. The system still operates, but its pull no longer reaches your core. This freedom feels quiet, not triumphant. No banners, just steady presence. You move through demands without inner conflict, because desire no longer betrays you into servitude. Number 3. Society structure versus inner sovereignty. Society organizes around roles, employee, consumer, citizen, that demand conformity for smooth function. These roles provide security, but extract autonomy. You trade time and energy for predictability. The exchange seems fair until you notice how little remains for deliberate living. The Stoics lived under empires and hierarchies, yet claimed sovereignty over the mind. Epictetus, once enslaved, declared only the philosophical are free. The system's design prioritizes collective stability over individual flourishing. Deadlines, metrics, social norms enforce compliance. Deviation brings friction. Yet Stoicism insists true governance lies within. Marcus Aurelius ruled an empire but ruled himself first, viewing externals as training for virtue. Inner sovereignty develops through deliberate judgment. When a superior criticizes, you choose whether to assent to harm or see it as indifferent. This choice preserves freedom amid pressure. Seneca advised preparing for adversity mentally, so real events lose surprise and power. Modern equivalents include algorithm-driven attention and debt cycles, subtle controls that feel voluntary. Recognizing them as indifferent allows detachment without withdrawal. You participate skillfully, fulfilling duties with excellence, but never confuse role with essence. Practice builds resilience. Reflect nightly on judgments made that day. Where did you surrender control? Adjust tomorrow. Over time, the system's expectations become mere circumstances, not determinants of your peace. This sovereignty brings quiet power. You fulfill obligations without resentment because they no longer define you. Freedom exists in the space between stimulus and response, space the system cannot enter. Number 4. Practical Stoic responses to the system. Stoicism offers tools, not escape. First, apply the dichotomy rigorously. List what you control, opinions, impulses, actions, versus what you don't, outcomes, others' views. Focus effort accordingly. Epictetus used this to endure slavery. You use it to navigate cubicles and commutes. Second, practice premeditation of evils. Anticipate frustrations like delays, criticism, fatigue. By expecting them, you rob them of shock. Marcus Aurelius began days reminding himself people act from ignorance. This preempts anger. Third, cultivate voluntary discomfort. Skip comforts occasionally to train indifference. Seneca slept on hard beds, ate plain food. In modern terms, limit screen time, walk instead of drive, refuse unnecessary upgrades. These build tolerance for the system's inevitable shortages. Fourth, turn obstacles into opportunities. When the system blocks a plan, ask, what virtue can I practice here? Patience in traffic, justice in conflict, temperance in consumption. The system provides raw material for character. Fifth, maintain routines of reflection. Morning premeditation, evening review. These anchor you amid flux. Over months, reactions slow, reason leads. These practices compound. The system remains unchanged, but your experience shifts from entrapment to purposeful navigation. Freedom manifests as calm effectiveness within constraints. Number 5. Claiming timeless freedom in modern constraints. Stoicism's promise endures because human nature and external pressures remain constant. Empires fell, corporations rise, same dynamic. The system evolves but never prioritizes your inner liberty. Yet the path to freedom stays identical. Mastery of self. Epictetus taught freedom as alignment with nature, acting rationally regardless of circumstance. In today's world, this means using technology without addiction, earning without greed, relating without dependence. The deepest realization, freedom was always internal. The ancients knew it under tyrants. We know it under algorithms. Claim it by consistent practice. Judge wisely. Act virtuously. Accept what comes. This freedom feels ordinary yet profound. No rebellion required, just persistent reason. You live in the system, but not of it. Tranquility arises not from changing externals, but from changing your relationship to them. Ultimately, the system was never designed for your freedom, and that's precisely why Stoicism works. It hands you the one domain no structure can touch, your own mind and will. Guard it fiercely, train it daily, and true liberty becomes yours, independent of any external design. Number 6. The trap of constant productivity. The modern economy measures value by output. Hours logged, tasks completed, metrics hit, emails answered. You start the day already behind, and it's still chasing closure that never fully arrives. Promotions come with more responsibility, higher pay with higher expenses, better titles with longer commutes, or remote work that blurs boundaries further. The system rewards constant motion because idle time threatens the cycle of production and consumption. Seneca described this as the busiest people being the most enslaved, busy not with meaningful action, but with endless busyness that serves external demands rather than inner reason. Epictetus pointed out that freedom disappears when you let externals dictate your schedule and worth. In today's world, algorithms decide what content you see, notifications dictate when you respond, deadlines force your priorities. You feel productive yet rarely fulfilled because the productivity serves the machine, not your rational nature. Marcus Aurelius wrote in his Meditations that we often mistake activity for progress. The emperor himself reminded himself daily to focus on what truly matters. Virtue, amid imperial duties that could have swallowed any lesser man. The exhaustion compounds quietly. You push through fatigue, thinking rest will come after the next milestone. But milestones multiply. Vacations become planning sessions for return. Weekends fill with catch-up work or recovery sleep that leaves you no freer. Stoicism counters this by redefining rest, not as escape, but as deliberate withdrawal of assent from unnecessary pursuits. When you stop equating self-worth with output, the system's pressure loses its grip because it no longer reaches your judgments. Practical application starts with boundaries rooted in reason. Decide in advance what constitutes enough for the day. Specific, rational limits rather than endless optimization. Epictetus trained himself to view work as indifferent. Perform it excellently because excellence is virtuous, but never let it own your peace. Over time, this creates mental space. You work within constraints without internal rebellion, turning duty into disciplined choice. The deeper shift happens when you accept that the system will always demand more. It's designed that way for growth, profit, stability. Fighting that reality wastes energy. Instead, use the demand as training ground for temperance and focus. Marcus Aurelius treated court intrigues and wars as opportunities to practice justice and self-command. Similarly, your deadlines and performance reviews become exercises in maintaining equanimity. True freedom in this trap emerges as quiet sovereignty. You produce what is required, but your inner state remains untouched by the pace. The system continues its rhythm, but you no longer dance to it compulsively. Productivity becomes a tool you wield, not a chain that binds you, leading to a life where effort serves virtue rather than endless external validation. Number 7. The illusion of choice in consumer culture. Stores, apps, subscriptions, streaming libraries offer thousands of options, yet the feeling of freedom rarely follows. Each choice carries hidden costs: time spent deciding, money spent maintaining, attention fragmented across alternatives. You upgrade your phone thinking it liberates you from boredom, but now notifications multiply and planned obsolescence looms. Seneca observed that luxury increases dependence. The more possessions you acquire to feel secure, the more vulnerable you become to their loss or replacement. Consumerism exploits natural desires for comfort and status, turning them into perpetual hunger. Epictetus taught that true freedom lies in removing desire, not satisfying it endlessly. In modern terms, ads target insecurities, showing lives that look freer, happier, prompting purchases that deliver temporary highs followed by new lacks. The cycle keeps you buying, scrolling, comparing, never quite arriving at satisfaction because satisfaction was never the goal. Ongoing consumption was. Marcus Aurelius reflected on how people chase externals like fame or wealth, only to find them indifferent to lasting peace. Today's equivalent is the curated feed. Everyone appears to have more travel, more experiences, more things. Yet behind the post lies the same quiet dissatisfaction. Stoicism cuts through by questioning whether these choices align with nature and reason or merely feed illusion. Breaking free involves voluntary reduction. Start by listing possessions and ask, does this serve rational use, or does it serve ego and distraction? Practice periods of simplicity, using one device, limiting subscriptions, buying only necessities. Epictetus endured poverty and slavery, yet claimed greater freedom than emperors because his desires stayed minimal. This discipline reveals how many choices were manufactured pressures. Over months, clarity grows. You notice impulses to buy arise from boredom or comparison, not need. By pausing and examining them, you reclaim assent. Epictetus's key to sovereignty. The marketplace still tempts, but its power diminishes when you no longer granted authority over your tranquility. The result is not deprivation, but liberation. Fewer decisions, less clutter, more mental bandwidth for what matters. Relationships, reflection, virtue. The illusion of choice fades as you realize genuine freedom requires fewer options pursued wisely, not infinite ones chased blindly. You live lighter within the same system, unburdened by what insists you need. Number 8. Digital attention as modern slavery. Your phone sits nearby, screen lighting up with pings that demand immediate response. Social media, news feeds, messaging apps fragment attention into seconds-long bursts, leaving little room for sustained thought or presence. The platforms profit from your engagement. Longer scrolls mean more ads, more data, more control. Epictetus warned against letting externals rule the mind. Today, algorithms do exactly that by curating content to maximize reaction and retention. This constant pull erodes freedom because it steals voluntary direction of thought. You intend to read, reflect, create, but notifications interrupt. Curiosity pulls you sideways. Seneca advised guarding time as the most precious resource. Time lost to distraction cannot be recovered. In the digital age, hours vanish into feeds without conscious choice, leaving you reactive rather than deliberate. Marcus Aurelius began each day reminding himself of human folly and impermanence, preparing his mind against disturbances. Modern equivalent. Start mornings without screens, using premeditation to anticipate digital temptations. When a notification arrives, ask, is this up to me? Or am I ascending to external command? This simple pause reclaims initiative. Deeper enslavement occurs through comparison and validation seeking. Likes, views, replies become measures of worth. Absence breeds anxiety. Stoicism separates self from opinion. Your value lies in character, not metrics. Epictetus endured public scorn, yet remained unmoved because he refused to let others' judgments define him. Practical countermeasures include timed usage, grayscale mode to reduce appeal, designated no-phone zones. Build habits of single-task focus. Read without tabs open. Converse without checking devices. Over time, attention strengthens. The mind regains capacity for depth rather than superficial breadth. Freedom returns as reclaimed presence. You engage the digital world on terms of reason, using tools for utility, not compulsion. The system still harvests attention from most, but yours remains sovereign, directed toward virtue and rational pursuits. This quiet mastery transforms technology from master to servant. Number 9. Social expectations and a loss of autonomy. Family, friends, colleagues, culture impose unspoken rules. Be available, succeed visibly, maintain appearances, avoid rocking boats. Deviate, say no to overtime, decline invitations, prioritize solitude, and friction follows. Disappointment, judgment, exclusion. Seneca noted that seeking approval from the crowd enslaves us. The wise person follows reason, not popular opinion. These expectations feel voluntary because they come wrapped in relationships and belonging, yet they constrain choices subtly. You accept extra tasks to avoid seeming unreliable. You post achievements to fit norms. You suppress opinions to keep harmony. Epictetus taught that only the foolish fear others' disapproval. True freedom ignores what cannot be controlled. Marcus Aurelius dealt with court flatterers and schemers, yet maintained inner independence by focusing on his duties with justice, not popularity. In daily life, this means fulfilling social roles excellently, but detaching worth from approval. Perform kindness because it's right, not because it earns praise. The cost of conformity shows in suppressed authenticity. Resentment builds when you live for others' expectations rather than your rational nature. Stoicism offers release through voluntary discomfort. Practice saying no politely. Endure temporary awkwardness. Observe reactions without emotional investment. Gradually, relationships improve or clarify. Genuine ones endure detachment from approval seeking. Superficial ones fade. You gain space for self-directed action, pursuing hobbies, reflection, virtue, without constant negotiation. This autonomy feels steady, not defiant. You remain connected, cooperative, but no longer defined by external scripts. The system's social machinery continues pressuring conformity, but your inner citadel stands apart, governed by reason alone. Number 10. Embracing indifference to build lasting freedom. Indifference to externals, preferred indifference like health, wealth, reputation, forms the Stoic foundation for freedom. The system pushes attachment to these as essential for happiness, but Epictetus clarified they are neither good nor bad. Only virtue is good, only vice bad. Clinging to indifference hands control to fortune and others. In practice, this means enjoying comforts without dependence. Appreciate a good meal, stable job, loving relationships, but prepare mentally for their absence. Seneca practiced poverty voluntarily to inoculate against fear of loss. Today, this looks like occasional fasting, minimalism experiments, reflecting on impermanence daily. Marcus Aurelius listed what fortune controls: body, possessions, fame, and urged indifference to preserve tranquility. When setbacks hit, job loss, illness, criticism, the prepared mind sees them as indifferent, focusing instead on response, courage, patience, wisdom. This mindset shifts daily experience. Challenges become practice opportunities rather than threats. The system's uncertainties, market shifts, social changes, personal reversals, lose power to disturb because attachment has been loosened. Over years, Indifference compounds into profound equanimity. You navigate promotions or demotions, praise or criticism, abundance or scarcity with similar calm. Freedom solidifies not as absence of constraint, but as presence of inner stability amid any constraint. Ultimately, embracing indifference reveals the system's design. It thrives on attachment. By releasing it, you operate effectively within the world without being enslaved by it. Tranquility becomes default. Virtue becomes pursuit. Freedom becomes the natural state of a reasoned mind. The system was never designed for your freedom, and that single fact contains both the problem and the solution. Every structure around you, economic, social, digital, cultural, exists to maintain order, extract value, ensure predictability, and keep the whole moving forward. It does this efficiently by channeling your natural impulses into productive channels, desire into consumption, fear into compliance, ambition into output. What it cannot do, and was never meant to do, is grant you the one freedom that matters most: sovereignty over your own judgments, your voluntary actions, your inner peace. The ancients understood this under emperors and tyrants. We face the same truth under algorithms and deadlines. The moment you stop expecting the external world to deliver unrestricted liberty is the moment you become capable of claiming the only liberty it cannot touch. Stoicism does not ask you to overthrow the system or withdraw from it. It asks you to see it clearly, accept its nature without resentment, and then govern yourself within its boundaries with reason and virtue as your only masters. This recognition brings no fireworks, no sudden escape, only a steady, accumulating quiet. You still wake up to the same notifications, the same obligations, the same quiet pressure to produce and consume. But the weight feels different because it no longer sits on your soul. You meet demands with disciplined excellence, not because they define you, but because performing well is rational and virtuous. You enjoy what comes: comfort, relationships, achievements, without letting them own you. When loss or setback arrives, as it always will, you respond with the calm that comes from long practice. This too is indifferent. What remains in my power is how I meet it. Day by day, the space between stimulus and response widens. That space is freedom itself. The system continues its rhythm unchanged, but you no longer move to its compulsive beat. You walk through the same world, yet on your own terms. So guard that inner domain with the same attention you once gave to external markers. Train your judgments daily. Practice indifference to what cannot be controlled. Return again and again to the dichotomy, to premeditation, to voluntary discomfort. Over months and years, these small, consistent acts compound into a tranquility the system was never equipped to provide or take away. You will not feel dramatically liberated in any Hollywood sense. You will simply feel present, steady, and free. Free in the only way that has ever truly mattered. The system was never designed for your freedom. That is why Stoicism remains the sharpest tool for claiming it anyway. Thank you for watching. If this spoke to you, like the video, subscribe for more, and I'll see you in the next one.